what's next for Renters Reform Bill? That is the topic we're discussing here at Property Answers. And today we are joined by the wonderful John and Ranjan, who have loads of experience in the industry answering this question for you today. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well indeed.
Very well, but very worried.
Very worried. we'll come to that in a moment.
Concerned.
And don't forget to like and subscribe this video, and we'd love to hear from you as well, so do comment below. So, what is next?
Well, I think we should start off by saying to the viewers what's happened, because I think it's very confusing for a lot of people. Now, this Renters Reform Bill has been kicking around. Michael Gove brought it up last year. It was allegedly to give tenants some safeguards,
but it was in the manifesto in 2019 or something.
There was something in the manifesto in 2019, but no one could agree on it. And I think one of the reasons why no one can agree on it, because it's quite hard to see what isn't covered by other legislations that already exist.
Yep.
So no one could agree on it. They did agree a month ago, but then Rishi decided to call the election. So the bill, although agreed, hadn't been enacted into law.
No.
So although everyone was talking about it, I mean, we've done a YouTube video on this channel, about 80,000 plus views on it. People were interested in it. A lot of landlords are now confused. Where the hell do we go?
Yeah.
So it's basically all up for grabs by the new government.
It is up for grabs. And one of the issues and why this government, it's now been dissolved, why the Conservatives wanted to bring this law in was because at the moment, only 10% of people under 40 are likely to vote Tory at the election. And that's appalling. Now, in the past, everybody that everyone that purchases a house is considered a potential Tory voter because they're aspirational, they want to get on. That they haven't been able to do that in the last few years very easily. And there's a lot of families living in houses where the landlord can say, I want you out in 2 months. They've got children at school, you know, they're settled, they've got children at school, they're long-term renters now. And that was a big issue for the Tories. They felt that was wrong, that they could just get rid of people landlords could get rid of people with 2 months. For me, all I would have done is change the short hold tenancy to say you have to give 6 months notice. That, if you're a family, that would have been far more sensible, I think, thing to do than what they've done, which is alienate every single landlord, and we know there's 2.5 million private landlords who normally vote Tory. But the one thing that really concerns me going forward, because Labour will bring this back and they'll toughen it even further. And one of the things that got a big pushback under the Conservatives was the fact of allowing possession of a property. Under Labour, I don't think a landlord will be able to get possession of that property unless they're not paying the rent and all the rest of it. Under the Tory scheme, Act as it was, you could get possession if you wanted to sell the property and all these other get-out clauses. They will go, without question they will go. You know, a Labour government will be on the side of tenants. That's what you've got to understand completely. I know you think, and Ranjan thinks, I'm sure, that the Tory government are now on the side of tenants, have been on the side of tenants, and I wouldn't disagree with you, but my God, you wait till Labour get in, you'll see something even more radical.
Oh, interesting.
Let's unpick some of that. I mean, the reason for this bill, I don't think the Tories had to do it at all.
I've told you why they had to do it.
No, but and that's what I'm unpicking. 94% of tenants surveyed in a recent survey carried out by one of the National Landlords Associations said they were satisfied with their landlords, and 68% of them, on a scale of 1 to 5, rated their landlord in the top 2 grades. So there aren't exactly a groundswell of tenants out there that are dissatisfied. And in fact, the greatest dissatisfaction among tenants is actually with public sector landlords. One of the highest fines issued for poor housing standards was issued last year to a housing association.
Very true. Yep.
So you try to getting a leak fixed in a council flat, and no one wants to know. because they are exempt from the lot of the legislation on housing standards that private landlords have to adhere to. So it's very questionable.
And rightly so, by the way. We agree with those standards, don't we?
Of course we agree with the standards, but you can't get away from the fact that more than 90% of tenants are happy with their landlords and the
properties. All these stats are fine, but who actually commissioned the report?
But who are the voters?
Who commissioned it? Tell me who commissioned that report.
Yeah, of course, it was a landlords association, and it was done by a bunch of tenants. Yes. But at the end of the day, the report is the report. And obviously someone commissions any poll or report, and you can do what you want with the data. But it does remain true that the greatest dissatisfaction in terms of poor housing standards is in the public sector. And there needs to be a root and branch look at that if there's going to be more social housing provision by the state.
Which there will be.
But the other thing I think people need to be exceptionally worried about here is that why are people, the whole idea, if a tenant is happy, they're paying the rent, the landlord is happy, why on earth does the landlord want to evict the tenant? Why? There is no reason for doing so.
Of course there is a reason.
No, hang on. The only reason for doing so in the last few years, or the main reason, is because a lot of smaller landlords are getting out because of the tax changes that have happened, because of the regulatory environment, and because of the fear of a Labour government. So a lot of smaller landlords are saying, we don't want to do this. And here's the other thing, right? I thought we ended slavery more than 150 years ago. We are going back to a time now where there's going to be one profession who are going to be slaves, who are going to be forced to do it. If I'm a teacher, I can decide to quit, I can go off and retire abroad. So if I'm a landlord, I cannot now give notice to my tenant because I want to sell up and retire and do something else. I'm now forced to be a landlord. Is that really what we are coming to? Slavery as a manifesto pledge in the Labour government?
Even I think that's a bit far-fetched, Ranjan.
Well,
you accused me on the other show of being far-fetched. And now
I'm not being far-fetched.
And now you're being a bit dramatic.
If I can't sell my property,
you can sell it to me at 35% less than
great.
The open market value.
Yes.
That's what we were paying in the 1980s and the 1990s when you couldn't get possession. They were called assured tenancies.
Yes.
Some of your viewers may remember. Some of them are older than me.
Now, I read about those days in the history books.
Very funny.
In the history books.
You were there, don't you worry. So you were there. And the great thing for developers like me, investors, we would buy blocks of 10, 20 flats, work the tenants, pay them to go, get them vacant, and sell them at 30% more than we paid for them. And that is a good business, but that takes time to evolve. In the meantime, you'll have all these landlords in denial, saying, oh no, I never wanted to sell my property anyway. Well, good luck with that, because it's worth 30% less than it was a year ago. And when the banks find out and work this out, they will downvalue a lot of these properties.
Well, I think the issue is far greater than that. And I think, it's great that you've got a nice vulture capitalist strategy to profit from this doom and gloom and misery of many people.
Thank you.
But back in those
I'm pleased about it.
But back in those days, which was a long time ago, and I read about it in the history books, I've seen some black and white movies.
You could read my books and read all about it if you wanted to.
I've seen some black and white movies and silent clippings on the subject. But back in those days, there was no buy-to-let mortgage, and no one really had rental property with any debt on it. So these days, if people have legitimately borrowed, say, 70% loan to value to make a buy-to-let work, and now that is significantly going to be a drop in value because no one who's going to buy a property if a tenant's stuck in it? The banks are in trouble. That's another great thing, actually. The bank lobby is going to be in a serious trouble with their buy-to-let loan book portfolio.
Massive trouble. Massive trouble.
And that may save the day.
That may save the day eventually. There may be some, there may for once,
So remortgage to 75% loan to value posts.
There may be
the banks be in trouble.
Yeah. There may be some legal challenges. To put it very simply, if you have a vacant property to sell, you've got 100% of the market to aim at. If you've got a tenanted property, you're probably looking at 5% of the market. That's the difference. Massive, massive difference.
What I worry about is that
with your portfolio,
we live under a capitalist system. You know, you to a large extent you make your own luck with the rules available.
Yeah.
What we don't have is socialist, communist thuggery system where you steal stuff from one and give to the other. Now, if you create a culture where I cannot serve notice on someone because I want to sell up a property, they can stay there, then the tenant will stay there.
for life,
and they will know that they can extract something out of you. It'll change that, and they will look at it as free money. And then you'll have some served consultants come and offer some no win, no fee. Yeah. We'll negotiate with your landlord, extract, you know. So what is that all about?
Can I just say, to depress you even further, I think they could go even further and limit the amount of rent you can get.
Well, put a cap on it.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that's probably for a whole nother show.
That is another show, yes.
But actually, they could well put a cap on the rent you receive. Some of these, and certainly in Holland, they have a national cap where it's perhaps 3% a year. You can put your property up. They tried it in Scotland. It hasn't worked very well. Ireland was a disaster. We'll talk about that on another occasion. But actually, they might well limit the rent you can receive as well as not let you get the tenant out.
So my big hope with that one is the banking lobby will
very powerful
will come in here, because they will be decimated if people cannot, get rid of tenants. The other issue here, and this is the other thing, what I don't understand is, if I don't pay my buy-to-let mortgage, the bank can repossess and get possession, and then the tenants have to go anyway.
Yeah.
So, what about we want to get out?
Well, they'll put a clause in there that they don't have to, won't they? They'll put some sort of clause in there. They don't want. They don't consider people, entrepreneurs, property entrepreneurs. They don't consider them to be important. These people are socialists. They don't want.
Do you think this will feed right into, Lloyd's HBOS group have said they want to be one of the largest landlords in the UK? They might just go along with this and say, well, we'll repossess the properties and buy to let them.
Some of these big players may go along with it because they look. Some of them are looking at rental projects for the next 50 years. So a lot of these banks and people now are investing, not just student accommodation, but private PRS, private rented accommodation. And they're looking at it over a 50-year period. Now, they don't mind if it's not vacant, as long as they're getting market rent. But if that market rent is then stopped by the government, they won't like that.
But what you're talking about is slightly different. What I'm talking about is, I've got my 3-bedroom end of terrace in Peterborough.
Yes.
It's worth 170 grand or whatever it is.
Lucky you.
I can't. I want to sell it, and do some other things.
Yes.
And I can't get the tenant out.
No.
There was really a very limited.
I'll give you I'll give you 125 for it.
I'll go to 115. That's what I got.
But I got 150 mortgage on it.
Oh,
well, that's tough. That's life, Ranjan. You have to find 25 grand to sell it, and that's what'll happen.
I think, I think there will be all sorts of. I think the banks will still have a right to reclaim if. I
don't think they will, Ranjan. I honestly don't think it's going to be as simple as that for the banks either. It's a major problem.
I do see Amazon surging sales in baseball bats.
Well, that's inappropriate.
Never mind. So there we go, the Renters Reform Bill. What's going to happen next? Let us know your thoughts by commenting below. Don't forget to like and subscribe this video, and we'll be back with more election talks very soon.